The bucolic space in which we find ourselves was originally part of a gigantic Franciscan monastery founded in the 16th century. This monastery included the El Tepetel of Opak, that is, the place located between waters, and probably referred to the Magdalena River. After the conquest of Tenochtitlan, Hernan Cortés went to Coyoacan to establish the first civil and ecclesiastical institutions of New Spain. Consequently, the Franciscan order arrived in these lands to begin its missionary work. The Franciscans built different chapels under different invocations of saints, which after the passage of time gave rise to the name of the different neighborhoods of Coyoacan. In this case, the Chapel of Santa Catarina was the initial nucleus of the neighborhood that today bears that name. The chapel dates from the 16th century, although it has been intervened throughout the following centuries. These types of chapels were known as Capillas de Indios, which roughly translates to Indian chapels, or Capillas Abiertas, meaning open chapels. Their function was to congregate the natives prior to their baptism and then teach them the Catholic faith. On the outside, the three doors stand out, preserving the central wooden door that was created in the 17th century. The bell tower also stands out, which was destroyed by the earthquake of September 19, 1985, and later restored. Inside the chapel, which has an L shape, there are important works of art, including an anonymous painting of the Virgin of Guadalupe from the 17th century, a beautiful wood-carved confessional from the same century, and a statue of Saint Catherine of Siena from the 16th century. The chapel is named after Santa Catarina, also known as Catherine of Siena, a Dominican nun who had mystical visions and lived in that Tuscan city in the 14th century. It is considered that because of her state of beatitude, her body remains incorrupt. In several churches in Europe and America, a number of her relics persist, such as pieces of her body or of her clothing. In fact, inside the altar of this chapel, there is a relic of hers, although it is not known what exactly it is. Behind the altar, there is a 17th century canopy containing a 17th century tabernacle. There is also the presbytery that includes a pulpit from the viceregal era and some steps. These steps were used to receive communion kneeling.
El cuerpo de Cristo. El cuerpo de Cristo.
Also, next to the altar were discovered, during the restoration, a pair of murals with the figure of Saint Francis of Assisi on the left side and Saint Dominic of Guzman on the right side. The chapel suffered looting and destruction during the Reform War and the Cristero War, so it lost much of its original works and ornamentation. The plaza was granted its current allure in the 1970s. In previous times, the plaza had a dirt floor and cobblestones, as well as a wall in the atrium, which were changed to include the paths and benches that we see today. In the plaza, you can find the bust of Campeche historian Francisco Sosa, who gave his name to the street and who lived in the neighborhood as well.